When I was a kid, it's a nice picture of me. When I was a kid, Americans looked at the turmoil in South America and asked, could it happen here? After January 6th, the people of Brazil asked, could it happen here? And on January 8th, it did. I'm naive, but it's unimaginable to me that there are actually people, Americans, who are opposed to democracy. But there are, and there always have been. In fact, they came up with this country. The people who gave us this republic, they kind of sort of believed in majority rule, but not really. Our founding criminals, like James Madison and Alexander Hamilton, they gave us the Senate and the Electoral College to prevent the mob from seizing power. And while I have nothing but contempt for our founding criminals, and you want to tear down their statues, and you probably should, I don't care, but there is still a promise they made to America, and that is to make it more democratic. That is the promise these criminals made to future generations. You know, elites have always found it fashionable to say they possess a Madisonian mistrust of the mob. And James Madison essentially wrote the U.S. Constitution. He was a slaveholder, an evil slaveholder. Well, they're all evil. And he baked into our Constitution speed bumps to prevent most Americans from voting. So James Madison, slaveholder, wrote the Constitution. He is one of our nation's founding criminals. I feel no need to celebrate, no need to thank him. But since we're still working off his blueprint for government, it is worth noting that this monster's Autobahn, if you will, is the American people's ability to amend the Constitution. He gave us an Autobahn. You know, Hitler gave us the Autobahn. Madison gave us an Autobahn, which allowed us to amend the Constitution. Unlike the majority of idiots who sit on our Supreme Court, James Madison, the slaveholder who wrote the Constitution, did not for 1 second believe the Constitution was anything other than a living and breathing document that had to be amended every now and then to change with the times. So if you're looking for original intent, if you're a strict textualist, then you must read the Constitution in the context of now, not when it was written, but today. The original intent of our founding criminals was more democracy, with the caveat, when we're ready for it. Again, I'm not going to defend the criminals who wrote the Constitution. I think it's dangerous to worship anyone. And so did our founding fathers, by the way. They didn't believe in autocrats. They didn't believe in worshiping God, for all we know. They believed that anyone who had too much power should be automatically cut off at the knees. And I like that. They also believed in something resembling majority rule. Something resembling majority rule. Not majority rule, something resembling it, with the promise to keep making America more of a democracy. But what we are dealing with here now is an open rebellion, specifically in the Republican Party. It is an open rebellion of fascists, authoritarians who don't believe in democracy because they don't believe in voting. That's why they keep calling these elections rigged. They want to discredit the democratic process. They want Americans to believe that their votes can't be counted because they don't. People like Steve Bannon don't believe in people voting. These people, it's hard to believe that these people exist here in America. We are so naive. The venality that exists, that if we don't pay attention to it, they will run us all over. These people exist. These are the same people camping outside the Brazilian Defense Ministry, begging the Brazilian military to overthrow Lula and take their country back to when it was ruled by generals. Make Brazil great again. You see, Brazil was a military dictatorship from 1964 until 1985. And there are many, many people, including the Bolsonaro family, Steve Bannon, and Donald Trump, who think that was Brazil's golden age. These people do not believe in democracy. I know it's hard to believe, but too many Americans do not believe in majority rule. And yet, they insist that they are real Americans. They insist that they are the real patriots. They are not. America is about more democracy, not less democracy, more and more and more. The great constitutional scholar, Congressman Jamie Raskin, writes in the January 6 report that most of the 17 amendments added to the Constitution since the Bill of Rights, most of those 17 amendments were intended to make America more of a democracy, to give more, not less, voice to the so-called mob. Congressman Raskin writes that starting with the 13th Amendment, which freed the slaves, America has tried to transform itself from a slave republic to a democratic one. That gives me hope. That gives me the chills, that we are working to transform this country from a slave republic to a democratic republic, and we are not there yet. We still have slavery in this country. Many of our prisons still force inmates to work either for free or pennies on the dollar. Our prison system has more black men either behind bars or out on parole than there were black slaves in 1850. But this country is still bending towards, not away from, more and more democracy. Despite all the undemocratic atrocities America continues to commit here and overseas, our sacred documents, especially the 14th Amendment, have always promised more democracy, not less of it. But as we see on January 6th and now on January 8th in Brazil, there are those who hate democracy. They insist too much freedom is dangerous, and ordinary Americans cannot be trusted to decide their own fate. These are authoritarians who chose violence over democracy. They claim their country must be protected from the mob without realizing they themselves are the mob.